Welcome back to part 2 of InDesign CC 2021, class from our book, chapter 11, about importing and modifying graphics. When we left off, we had just barely put in a few of our graphics here, and we're working on this leaf element up in the top. So we've got our Adobe Bridge open. We need to rename our flower as Maple Leaf Yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click and do a rename and call it Maple Leaf Yellow. So that's one of the beauties of Bridge, is you can change these things really easy. In general, you want your file names to be relatively short because once you package them and put them in folders and things, you only get 255 characters. So it's a really good way to break your links if you have super long file names. So it's just one of those weird little things you probably haven't thought about. All right, so we can drag directly from Bridge into our InDesign document. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my Maple Leaf Yellow. I'm going to go ahead and put it over here on my pasteboard. So it's a little bit big. It's more than I want to deal with right now. So we're going to go ahead and use our Shift and Control and make it a little bit smaller. And then we're going to go ahead and drag it down so it's over here by our blue square and go a little bit smaller still. All right, I can decide, hey, I don't love this leaf. I think he's kind of ugly. So I can do with Bridge is I can go grab this Maple Leaf Red instead and drag it over that same. And it's going to go ahead and keep the same proportions. And so now I can think, okay, maybe now I want to tip it just a little bit. So I'm going to take and rotate that about 20 degrees or so. And decide, okay, maybe I want to try something else. So let's try this Maple Leaf Orange instead. So you're going to see it's going to keep the rotation, it's going to keep the size. So there's a lot of benefits to working with Bridge in that respect. So I'm going to go ahead. I kind of like the red one better. I'll put the red one back in. Up to you. Pick which one you like better. And I'm going to do Control S and save. So now we're going to go ahead and edit some placed pictures. So the easiest way to change your images is to edit them the way they are originally. So let's go here to our links. And let's go find our blue hydrangea. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to click here and I can do a edit original with a little pencil down in the corner, and that will go ahead and open up Photoshop or InDesign depending on which one you used. And that way you can make your changes and you can update your publication and make it really easy, especially if we're looking at things like fixing your DPI, things like that. So let's show you how to do both of those. All right, so first thing I always do when I open up my Photoshop is I go into my image size. So my image size is 600 pixels. So let's take a look at that in inches. So it's about 3 by 3 inches. The resolution is about 200. So for this classroom and book, that's fine. For your publications, I want you to up it to 300, but we'll go over that later. So let's go say okay. So let's go ahead and take a peek at our publication. We know that we have this blue hydrangea right now over on the back side of our cover. So let's go back to our Photoshop and let's run it through a filter. So let's just go to filter and go to filter gallery. And I know we're not to Photoshop yet, so this is going to be new. And I just want to go ahead and pick any one of these filters that you like. So you can see there's quite a few different things you can do pretty easily. So let's pick one that you like. I'm going to pick this watercolor and say okay. I'm going to go ahead and push save, Control S. And when I close this, now when I go back to my document, you will see it has now put the altered one in here for us instead. So it's really an easy way to go through and make those changes. So the next section is not one that I work with a lot, but I do want you to know how to do it. We're going to go ahead and jump over to page 4. And we're going to work in this purple box, and we're going to work with some pairs. So let's go to our layers panel and make sure we're on our photos. And let's go ahead and lock our background just to make it a little bit easier for us not to grab the wrong thing. Let's go ahead and do a file and place. With file place, we want to grab pairs.psd and say open. And we want to go just kind of out here to the side. And you're thinking, this is a terrible picture. Why are you making us put this in? It's because it's got some clipping masks and things already created for us so we can play with them. So let's go ahead and do object. Come down here to clipping path. And we want to go to options. And we want to do the we're going to move it out of the way so we're not in the way. Let's make sure our preview is turned on. And our type we can have, let's go ahead and choose our Photoshop path. And now you see that they've already gone through and taken those apart for us. So we like our 2 pairs. Let's say OK. And I'm going to go ahead and Shift Control or Shift Command and make those a little bit smaller. Not direct selection. Okay. I'm going to kind of put them down here. They're kind of awful, I know. This whole project's a little bit on the ugly side, but that's okay. All right, so now we've got our 2. So let's go ahead and press Alt and drag up. So we want to go ahead and make another copy. So make a copy of this one, go up to the right, and you say, wow, more pairs. So let's go ahead and go to our object and fitting. And we want to go ahead and make it a little bit smaller. So when we did that, it's not quite fitting right. So let's do object, fitting, and let's go ahead and do our fit frame to content. Let's make it a little bit smaller. All right, now let's double click our pairs and we can kind of see that we've got the image underneath the actual frame. So now let's go ahead and make it, let's make it a little bit smaller still. So let's do make sure we're doing the frame, not the content. Let's do our Control and Shift and bring it up just a little bit more. And what we're going to do is we're going to lose one of those pairs. How are we going to do that? So we're going to go ahead and let's rotate it a little bit so we can make the pairs. And we need to only show one of these pairs. So somehow I missed just showing one of the pairs. Oh, here we go. We want object, clipping mask, clipping path, options, and this time we just want the right pair. So say OK. That's where I lost it. That's one of the advantages of using this type of clipping path. But you can see I'm moving it in the frame and not the frame itself. So let's make sure I've got the whole frame. Bring it down. Okay. So now I've got my 1 pair there. So I want to put 1 more pair in. Let's take this guy up here and let's do an Alt, make another one. Let's go ahead into our object, into our clipping path and our options. And this time let's show the left pair and say OK. And let's take that left pair, grab that content, okay, and put that left pair kind of right here on top of the other pairs. And let's do a Control S and save what we've got right now as far as our pairs go. So the next thing we're going to do is start to work with some transparent backgrounds. So let's go ahead and jump in our pages over to page number 2, which is this going to be, we're going to add, let's see, this element right here. So you can see we just did the pairs, which are so exciting. And now we're going to do the tulips. So we're between 2 and 3. And let's go ahead and create a rectangle frame and take that rectangle frame and put it kind of right here toward the bottom. And now let's go ahead and do a object. We're going to tell it a few instructions before we put something in it. We want to do fitting, and we want it to do frame fitting options, and we want fit content proportionally, and we want to do it from the center down. And then we're going to say OK. Now we want to do a file in place. Go ahead and grab those tulips. Open. It's going to go ahead and place it in there. You're going to say that looks really weird. So we're going to go ahead and fix it. So let's go ahead and scale the picture without scaling the frame. So let's grab the content grabber. And I'm going to close that. And I'm going to do Shift Control and make it bigger. Drag it down a little bit. Do my Shift Control. Let's make it a little bit bigger still. Use that content grabber. Maybe just a little bit up. All right, I want to make it just a little bit smaller. All right, so let's make that frame a little bit taller too. So it's not always a perfect situation. Sometimes we have to play with it in order to get to the way we want it to be. I'm going to make that a little wider too. All right, now I'm not cutting off the edges quite as much as I was before. Much better. So you'll see the difference in the clipping path was very distinct lines, whereas the raster image gave us a very, a very soft look. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this one for now, and we'll pick up on importing graphic files on the next one.